Hello my dear students, a very good afternoon to all. This is Vasavi Ma'am from Neet World, your biology educator for Foundation and CBSE. Yes, students, in the last session we have just discussed about the introduction of the plasma membrane, and along with that we have also discussed in detail about the differences between the prokaryotic cell as well as the eukaryotic cell, and apart from that we have also discussed about the NCERT exemplar questions, children. Okay. So, these all are the topics which we have discussed in the previous session. Yes. So, coming towards the today's particular session, yes, today in detail we are going to learn about the plasma membrane structure, and we are also going to learn about the transport mechanisms in the plasma membrane. Okay. In the last session just I have given you a little bit introduction about the plasma membrane. Okay, so now no need to worry about that. So today we are going to learn in detail about its mode of mechanisms as well as its complete composition, plasma membrane composition, its structure along with its transport mechanisms. All these things we are going to learn in today's particular session. Yes. So students, so when we are going to learn this particular topic, it is very important to understand the concept. Okay, first whenever you are clear with your concept, then easily you can attempt the case based questions, case study questions easily you can attempt when you are clear with the concept. So this plasma membrane subtopic, this particular structure is very important with relevant, it is very it is going to get for case study questions, children. Okay, so please stay tuned until the session gets end, and please try to note down the points whatever required for you. Okay. Yes. So let's get started without any delay. Yes, children. Yes. So plasma membrane is also called as a cell membrane. Plasma membrane is also called as the cell membrane. It is selectively permeable in nature. Okay. It is selectively permeable in nature. Yes. Each and every cell, okay, that may be either prokaryotic cell or else it may be either the eukaryotic cell, every cell is going to be surrounded with the cell membrane. Okay, each and every cell is going to be surrounded with the cell membrane, and outside to the cell membrane we have what, children? We have the cell wall. Okay. Yes. So now we are going to study about the plasma membrane structure. Yes. So Singer and Nicholson has proposed this plasma membrane structure, and they have proposed the fluid mosaic model. They have given the name fluid mosaic model for this plasma membrane. Okay, why they have given that fluid mosaic model name? Okay, so now we are going to discuss about it. Okay, yes. Yes, children. So please try to understand slowly whatever I am explaining you, children. Yes. So if you see the cell structure, yes, okay. So now the plasma membrane is made up of phospholipid bilayer. Okay, plasma membrane is made up of what, children? It is made up of phospholipid bilayer. Okay, you have to understand clearly whatever the structure I am drawing here. Okay, based on the composition of plasma membrane also you are going to get the questions. So it is made up of phospholipid bilayer. Okay, I am writing here phospholipid bilayer. Okay, and this phospholipid bilayer is going to contain the tail structures. Okay. Yes, these are the tails. Okay. Yes. Now if we look into its single lipid structure, it is going to contain two components. Phospholipid bilayer is made up of how many components, children? Two components. It contains hydrophilic head. Okay, it contains the hydrophilic head. Hydrophilic head, and the tail is hydrophobic in nature. Tail is hydrophobic and head is hydrophilic. Hydrophobic, yes. The tail is hydrophobic in nature and head is hydrophilic in nature. Yes, now here the solution. Okay. So this is the extracellular fluid which is present outside the plasma membrane. This is the extracellular fluid, just I am writing it as ECF. This is the extracellular fluid which is present outside the plasma membrane, and here we have what, children? Inside the cell what we have? Cytoplasm. It is also called as intracellular fluid. I am writing it as ICF, or else we can also call it as cytoplasm. We can also call it as cytoplasm. Now if we look into the structure, the cell is in close association with the extracellular fluid as well as it is in close association with the intracellular fluid. It means it is in close contact with the cytoplasm as well as it is in close contact with the outside cellular fluid. Okay. So now what we have in between these, in the extracellular fluid as well as in the intracellular fluid, what we have arranged here? Hydrophilic heads. Okay. Hydrophilic heads are in close association with the extracellular fluid. It means hydrophilic means what, children? Hydrophilic in the sense water loving. Okay. They are always going to remain in close contact with the solvent molecules. Okay. Whereas coming towards the hydrophobic tails, okay, they are water hating. Phobic in the sense they are fear of water. They are not going to remain in contact with the water. So now in the yesterday's session, that is nothing but in the previous session, I have gave you a question to all the students. Can you transport the water? Can you transport the solvent across the plasma membrane? Okay. So it's a question to all of you. Can you transport the solvent molecules from the plasma membrane? Okay. Absolutely not. Why means in between we have what? Hydrophobic tails. Okay, you can transport, if you can transport the water also, if you can transport the solvent also, it comes up to here. Okay, but you cannot transport completely to the cytoplasm. Why you cannot transport completely to the cytoplasm? Because here we have a barrier. Okay, here what is associated to that hydrophilic head? Hydrophobic tail is, yes, hydrophobic tail is associated. It means it is always not in contact with the water. Okay. If suppose this plasma membrane structure we are calling it as fluid mosaic model. Why means the plasma membrane structure will always show the movement in this manner. Okay. It will move continuously inside the cell. Okay. So when, yes, so when these are the hydrophilic heads, okay, and if suppose if these are the hydrophobic tails, okay, when the water molecules are going to come in contact to this, okay, they are suddenly they are going to grasp like this. Okay, so they are not going to remain in touch with the water molecules. Okay, this is a general introduction. Okay, when it comes to the composition, it is made up of two components. Okay, hydrophilic head and then next hydrophobic tail. Okay, now outside the cell also we have the association with the water molecules, and inside the cell also we have the solvent molecules, that is nothing but the cytoplasm. Okay, up to here clear with the structure and composition? Yes. Now next we are going to look into some more interesting things which are going to be embedded inside the plasma membrane. Okay. Now I have said you that we cannot transport the solvent molecules. Okay, but the solvent molecule is required to be transported inside the cytoplasm. So at that particular case, what we want? We want some proteins. Okay, we require the proteins. Some carriers, some channels are required to transport that extracellular fluid to the intracellular fluid. So here what we are going to be contain means these are the proteins. Okay, yes, these are proteins which are scattered inside the plasma membrane. Okay, if they are scattered inside the plasma membrane, then they are called as intrinsic proteins. What, children? Then at that time what they are going to be called? They are known as intrinsic proteins. It means they are going to be embedded inside the plasma membrane. Intrinsic proteins. Okay, so these proteins are just meant for passage of the ions or molecules from the outside cell environment to the inner side of the cellular environment. Okay, along with these proteins which are present inside the plasma membrane, we have few more proteins which are associated with these hydrophilic heads. Okay, let me use the another color so that you will get clear with the concept. Yes, I am taking, okay, children. Okay, this green color structure, whatever I am going to draw here, Okay, these are also the proteins which are associated with the hydrophilic head. So now I am naming it as extrinsic proteins. Extrinsic proteins. Okay. So yes, that's it. This is about the general composition of the plasma membrane, which is going to contain extrinsic proteins as well as intrinsic proteins. Those are just meant for transporting the ions, okay, from here to here. Okay. So now if we look into the mechanisms, if we look into the mode of mechanisms, okay, we have generally 4 different types of mechanisms through which you can transfer the solvents or solutes from the external cell environment to the internal cell environment. Clear, children? Yes. So what are those four? Okay, diffusion, osmosis, and next active transport and bulk transport. Okay, these 4 are the types of mechanisms which are going to be present, which will help in transferring the solutes or ions from the ECF, extracellular fluid, to the intracellular fluid. Yes, students, everyone note down this. Based on these, now you have to solve the case study question. Yes. Now, if there is any sugar attached with this hydrophilic head, okay, if the sugar is attached to this hydrophilic head, then it is called as yes, yes, children. If there is a sugar molecule is attached to this lipid, then it is called as glycolipid. What, children? At that time it is going to be said as glycolipid. Okay. If there is a sugar attached with these proteins, then it is called as glycoprotein. Clear? Clear with the structure? Glycoprotein in the sense the sugar which is attached with the protein molecules, proteins, and next glycolipids in the sense sugar molecules which are attached to the lipids, and intrinsic proteins are in the sense which are embedded inside the plasma membrane, and extrinsic proteins are going to remain outside the plasma membrane. Okay, and this is called as hydrophilic head, which is in close contact with the solvent molecules, and next it is called as the hydrophobic tail, which will never allow the solvent molecules to pass into the cytoplasm. Okay, yes. So now yes, you can see here. Okay, this is a protein, intrinsic protein. I am writing it as IP, intrinsic protein, and yes, this one is the extrinsic protein. Yes, just a minute. It is an extrinsic protein. Yes, and this is a lipid. Okay, this is which is sugar molecule which is attached to the lipid. It is called as glycolipid, and next it is yes. Next, this is a sugar molecule which is attached to the protein. It is called as a glycoprotein. Yes, now here comes Singer and Nicholson has given these plasma membrane and they have named it as a fluid mosaic model. Why they have named it as a fluid mosaic model? In the sense, it means the plasma membrane will always shows the movement. Okay, so in between them what are present? Proteins are present. It is just simply nothing but the icebergs which are going to float inside the water. Okay, so when you place the ice in the water, what will happen, children? Just the ice is going to float. Okay, so just it is simply the icebergs which will float inside the water. So just these proteins are going to float like this. Okay, and hence it is called as fluid mosaic model. Yes, now we will look into the transport mechanisms. Okay, transport mechanisms, how the molecules or ions are going to be transported. Now we will look into it. Yes, children. So now you can transport the molecules or ions by two mechanisms, that may be either active, you can mode of transport is of two types. It may be either active transport or passive transport. Okay, we will discuss about this active transport later. So first let's look into the passive transport. Okay, the passive transport is of two types. One is simple diffusion. One is simple diffusion. Yes, and next it is facilitated diffusion. facilitated diffusion, simple diffusion and the next facilitated diffusion. So, look here how the simple diffusion process will occur. First of all, what is diffusion, children? The movement of the molecules or ions from the higher concentration gradient to the lower concentration gradient. Okay. The movement of the molecules or ions from the high concentration gradient to the low concentration gradient. Okay. That is a simple diffusion. Okay. So, now see here, this is a plasma membrane, it is a phospholipid bilayer. Yes. So, now here is a blood vessel. Okay. Inside the blood vessel we have rich amount of the oxygen. Here what is more, children? Oxygen is more. Okay. So, now inside the cytoplasm, inside the cell cytoplasm we have less amount of the oxygen. Now, you have to transport the high concentration gradient, now you have to transport the oxygen from high concentration gradient which is present inside the blood vessel to the low concentration gradient. So, how it is going to occur? By the simple diffusion. Okay. So, when this oxygen is going to enter, okay, here it will break down into, here when the oxygen is going to enter, later on it breaks the glucose into carbon dioxide and then next energy. Okay. Now, it gives the carbon dioxide. Okay. Here in the blood vessel oxygen percentage is more. Okay. Inside the cell cytoplasm the percentage of oxygen is less. So, you need to transport, okay, from the higher, the diffusion, the definition it says that the molecules which moves from the high concentration gradient to the low concentration gradient is called as diffusion without involvement of the semi-permeable membrane. Okay. Yes. So, afterwards when the oxygen is going to enter here, it breaks the glucose into carbon dioxide and the next ATP, the CO2 whatever is released here, it gets transported to the extracellular fluid. This is the process how the simple diffusion actually going to takes place in our body. Okay. So, for the simple diffusion you can write the example respiration in humans. Okay. So, in diffusion always the molecules, okay, the molecules whatever they are involving, that may be either, okay, solids, liquids or gases. Okay. Mainly gases are going to play a major role in the simple diffusion. Okay. For the simple diffusion you can write the example respiration where the exchange of gases will takes place inside the human body. Yes. And next coming towards the facilitated diffusion. Clear with this concept, simple diffusion? Yes. Now, in the passive transport only we are going to learn about the facilitated diffusion. So, in the passive transport, now the difference between active and passive transport is, in the passive transport the molecules will move by the simple diffusion without involvement of the energy. Here you need not to transport any energy. Okay. Here we need not to put any efforts, we need not to put any energy to move the molecules from high concentration gradient to the low concentration gradient. Yes. Now, coming towards the facilitated diffusion, here some carriers are required. Okay. Some carriers are required to transport the molecules or ions, or that may be either solutes or solvents, from the high concentration to the low concentration gradient, that may be either from the extracellular fluid to the intracellular fluid. If you want to transport something, you need a carrier or channel. Okay. Suppose in the simple diffusion their semi-permeable membrane is not involved and we need to supply the ATP, we need not to supply the energy in the form of ATP. Now, here comes in the facilitated diffusion, there we need to, yes, here we want some proteins or some carriers. Okay. We want some way to transport those molecules or ions. So, those are channel proteins and carrier proteins, children. Channel proteins, okay, and then next carrier proteins. Okay, channel proteins and then next carrier proteins. So, these will give the way to transport those molecules or ions from the extracellular fluid to the cytoplasm. Okay, we will see here. Yes. Now, again, okay, I am making this phospholipid bilayer plasma membrane structure so that this topic becomes easy to you, children. Okay. This is the plasma membrane, okay, hydrophilic heads and the next hydrophobic tails. Yes. So in between these what we have? We have channel proteins or carrier proteins. Okay, these channel proteins will be like this. Okay, so from this channel protein you can transfer the solvent molecules. Okay, so outside the cell environment there is a high concentration of the solvent, so easily you can transport it from here to the intracellular fluid. Yes, simple. It is about the facilitated diffusion, where some channels are involved, where some special passages are involved to transfer the solvent molecules from higher to the lower concentration. Okay, these are the channels which will give some way to transport. Okay, and next carrier proteins are also involved. Okay, so we can transport the solvent molecules from outer to inner side by some special porine structures. Those are called as aquaporins. Okay, aquaporins are just meant to transport the solvent molecules. Those are just meant to transport the water molecules. About the aquaporins you are going to learn in higher grades. Okay, that's not at all a problem. So now just look into this simple structure where some channel is involved in taking the solvent from outer cell environment and then next distributing to the inner cell environment. This is about the facilitated diffusion. Okay, and next we will see about the carrier proteins. So in carrier proteins what happens? In the carrier proteins, yes, here the channels are located in this way. Okay, so inside the when we see the carrier proteins, these are the carrier proteins, children. Yes, these are the carrier proteins and this is the hydrophilic heads of the plasma membrane and these are the tails of the plasma membrane, phospholipid bilayer. Yes. So in the facilitated diffusion the carrier proteins, okay, the carrier proteins will take the molecules or ions. Okay, they will take the molecules or ions from the ECF, from the extracellular fluid, and then next they will distribute it into the cytoplasm. Okay, they will capture the molecules or ions which are present in the extracellular fluid. Okay, they will take that molecules and then next they will become inverted and they will distribute these molecules or ions which are required for the intracellular fluid. Clear with the concept? Clear with the passive transport mechanism? In the passive transport we no need to supply any energy to transport the solvents or solutes from the outer cell environment to the inner cell environment. That's a definition, right? So the passive transport may be of two types, simple diffusion and then next facilitated diffusion. So in the simple diffusion what we have done? We didn't supply, we didn't give any energy in the form of ATP. There is no ATP is involved. Okay, so just molecules are going to move from high concentration gradient to the low concentration gradient. Okay, and this simple diffusion process in our daily life we can see inside the human body. For this example is respiration, where the exchange of gases is going to takes place. Okay, and when it comes to the facilitated diffusion, here also you no need to supply any energy, but here some channels and some proteins, some carriers and some channels are required to transport those ions or molecules. Okay, to transport those solvents. Those are channel proteins which will create some way in this manner. They will take those solvents and they will distribute to the cytoplasm, and carrier proteins will be in this shape. They will take those molecules or solvent molecules and then next they will distribute it into the intracellular fluid. This is all about the passive transport mechanism which is going to take place in the plasma membrane. Yes. Now we will see about the active transport. Yes. So in the active transport you need to supply the energy in the form of ATP. Okay. Some energy is required to move the ions or molecules, to move the charged ions or molecules from the outer cell environment to the inner cell environment. You need to supply some energy, you need to give some energy to transport those. Okay. Yes. So here, yes. Just a minute, children. Yes. Yes, again it is a phospholipid bilayer. See children, continuously I am drawing the structure of the plasma membrane. Okay, based on this only now you have to study the you have to attend the case study question. Okay, now we are seeing this process in the active transport. Okay, in the active transport we have some special pumps. Okay, special pumps are present which are actually which are actually meant to transport those charged ions or molecules from the outer side to the inner side of the cell. Okay, so now inside the cell so outside the cell, outside the plasma membrane, sodium ions are more. Okay, many number of sodium ions are present. The concentration of sodium ions is more in the outer cell environment. Okay, here sodium is more and potassium is less. Okay, and here the potassium is more and sodium is less. Now it is easy to transport from the high concentration gradient to the low concentration gradient, but to transport the molecules, to transport the charged ions from the low concentration to high concentration gradient, there we always need to supply the energy. Here what is more? Potassium is more. Clear? Yes, and here which is less? Potassium potassium is less. Now you need to transport these less charged ions, that is less number of potassium ions from this outer cell to the inner cell. So now what you need to give? You need to give the energy in the form of ATP. Yes, simple. This is the way to transport the charged ions from plasma membrane. Okay, it is also a mode of transport mechanism which involves the energy in the form of ATP. So it is an active process. In the active transport mechanism, we use the special channels, we use the special pumps, those are called as sodium potassium pumps. Okay, here we are transporting the potassium. Okay, and if you want to transport the sodium, sodium pump is present, and to transport the potassium, potassium pumps are present. Okay, so this process is always in one direction, children. Okay, it is always involved in one direction. Okay, that may be either higher to lower or lower to higher. Okay, this is about the active transport. Till now we have completed just the transport mechanisms, that is of active and passive. Now we are going to look into the yes, this is a clear picture. Through this you can understand clearly. Yes, children. See here. So from the plasma membrane, it is a selectively or semi-permeable membrane. Here first one is the passive transport. Okay, passive transport, just now we have discussed, it may be either simple diffusion or facilitated diffusion. So in the simple diffusion, here there are high concentration molecules which are moving to the low concentration without involvement of the energy. Okay, and this is a facilitated diffusion. Here we have studied about two interesting things, those are channel proteins and carrier proteins. See, these are the carrier proteins which will take the the molecules which are high concentrated in the extracellular fluid. So they will they will take those molecules and they will turn inward and they will distribute it into the inner cell environment. This is about the facilitated and simple diffusion which comes under the passive transport. Yes, coming towards the and here we also have the channels to transport the solvent molecules from here to here. Okay, and next we have the active transport. In the active transport, what we have learned, there is a requirement of energy in the form of ATP to transport the ions or molecules from low concentration to the high concentration. See here, if you see now, see here the molecules. Okay, here all the high concentrated molecules are there. Okay, here the concentration of those molecules or gases or solvents is less. So now we are transporting it to the against the concentration gradient. Okay, clear? Are you getting my point? Here the molecules or ions are less. So you need to transport it from less to more. So at this time you need to use the energy. Okay, at this time, at this particular case, we require an energy to transport. Okay, this is all about the plasma membrane transport mechanism. And here, yes, by seeing this you will get the clear idea, children. Yes. See, you can have the clear idea about it. Yes, children, just a minute. Just a minute children, here is an technical issue. See, here you can see the structure. Yes, just a minute, that's not a problem. It's just a technical issue children. So now once again we will revise that all. So until then you all students please be stay tuned and please just make a note of it. Now again we are going to learn about this transport mechanism. Still we have to learn about the 3 more important mechanisms. We have to learn about the diffusion process is completed, active transport is completed, and next we have to learn about what children? We have to learn about the bulk transport mechanism. Yes. Just a minute, it was just a technical issue, you can easily get into it. Yes, plasma membrane structure and its functions. Yes, here is a case study question. Yes, here is a case study question children. Yes. Yes. Okay children, that's just a technical issue, that's not at all a problem. Yes, active transport in the sense transporting the molecules or ions from from the lower against the concentration gradients by using the energy in the form of ATP. In the passive transport no energy is involved, that is about the active and passive transports. Yes, next again we also need to study about the important and interesting thing, that is the osmosis. Here is a little bit technical issue, it's not at all a problem, we are going to learn it in the next live session children. So until then please stay tuned and like, share and subscribe to Neet World, and next we are also going to solve all the case study questions which are related to osmosis and plasma membrane. Thank you.